Hello, in this video I'd like to share with you what's going to happen to property prices this year due to the current crisis. And I'm going to share with you opportunities and what are the best strategies for you to be using in the next 3 to 6 months. So I'm Simon Zutshi, I'm the author of Property Magic, the Amazon #1 property bestseller. I'm the founder of the Property Investors Network, and I've been investing in property for 25 years. And the thing is, I've seen what's about to happen. You see, I believe we're going to have a dip in property prices. I don't think it's going to be a major crash, but I expect prices to come down maybe 15, maybe 20%. And I've seen this happen back in 2008. And for those investors who are ready, those who are prepared, it's going to be the buying opportunity of this decade. Let me ask you a question. With the amazing benefit of hindsight, if you could wind the clock back to 2008, would you go and buy more property? And if you ask most investors, the answer would be, well, absolutely, because prices had all come down, and over the last 10 or 12 years, most property bought in 2008, 2009 at the right price has more than doubled in value over that time period. So most investors would love to go back. Well, this is going to be a similar opportunity. Obviously, it's different circumstances. Last time, it was very much the banks who were in control. And because they had all this toxic debt, they didn't want to lend. They brought the loan to value down. It was difficult to finance. Lots of people wanting to sell, not enough people buying, which is why prices came down. And the areas that were hit the most were the ones that boomed the most in the early to mid 2000s. Typically in the north and in Northern Ireland, we saw massive booms, and that's where the biggest crashes happened. So what is going to happen, and why is it going to happen? Well, for the last year, things have been going on that have led me and other investors to be predicting there's going to be certainly a dip in property prices in 2020 and in 21. That's caused mainly by the changes that the UK government brought in April 2017 when they introduced Section 24. Now, Section 24 is where they've changed the way that we as property investors are taxed on the income and profit from our property portfolio. It always used to be the way that you'd own property in your own name, and that was the most tax efficient way of doing it. But moving forward, people who are starting to invest are generally buying within a company structure. And the reason is, if you own property in your own name, which the vast majority of landlords do, and if you're a high rate taxpayer, which the majority of investors are because they're making money from their property, and you have mortgages, which most people do, what it means is you're going to be paying a lot more tax on the income that you make. Now, these changes are phased over 4 years. We saw the first effect in January 2019 when people looked at their tax return from 17 to 18 and they realized they had the same income, but they paid this extra tax. And how come? And they said to their accountant, what's this about? The accountant said, oh, that's Section 24. And by the way, it's going to get worse over the next 3 years. And sure enough, in 2020, they looked at the tax returns again in January and they said, oh, wow, I'm paying all this extra tax. Why is this? Section 24, it's going to get worse. So because I run the Property Investor Network, and prior to this lockdown, we had 51 meetings around the country. Right now, all the meetings are online and they're virtual. But we had our ear to the ground at grassroots all around the UK. And we were seeing that long-term landlords, people who've been investing for maybe 10, 15, 20 years, whose exit strategy was at some point to sell their properties and retire on a big pile of money, we've seen more and more of those coming out of the woodwork, coming to network meetings, saying, you know what, I'm thinking about selling some of my properties, because they don't want to have the same amount of hassle and work, but for a lot lower income, which is the effect because they're paying this extra tax. So we've seen that happen. Add to that the new legislation. For example, in October 2018, the government changed the licensing requirements for HMOs, such that any property with 5 or more rooms needs a license. That meant an extra 175,000 properties need licensing. And then obviously the final nail in the coffin is this COVID-19 pandemic virus that's hit the whole world. We're in lockdown as I'm filming this right now. And there are some landlords who are worried about their tenants maybe not paying them because they can't afford to pay the rent. So this is the final straw for many people. And we are going to see more and more landlords of the next 3 to 6 months decide to get rid of some of their properties. If they remember what happened back in 2008 when the market crashed, they're going to think, you know what, I might be prepared to sell a bit of a discount because I've had so much growth over the last 10 years instead of prices crashing down 20-30%, which is what happened then. So there's going to be an incredible opportunity. Now here's the reality. Back in 2008, 2009, most investors were not buying property. Everyone was trying to sell, everyone was panicking. And it was only the smart, educated investors who saw the opportunity, realized that this was a short-term blip. I say blip, prices came down quite a lot, but we understand that in the UK, we live on an island with a limited supply of accommodation and an increasing population. What that means is we don't have enough accommodation, and over the long term, property prices and rents go up. They don't always go up, they come down, but the long-term trend is up. So as long as you're investing for the long term, and that's one of the golden rules I talk about in Property Magic, it doesn't matter if short term the prices come down. As long as you can rent the property out and you're always making cash flow, doesn't really matter. So for those of us who understand about the long-term potential of property, now is a great time to get out there and buy more property. So what are the best strategies going to be? Well, I believe we're going to go into recession. Unfortunately, many businesses are going to go bust. Employees are losing their jobs. This means that we're going to have more people on benefits, less tax income coming in. We're going to be in recession. Now, in tough economic times, many people have to pull their belts in, they have to reduce their costs. And I think we're going to see people who maybe are living on their own in an apartment or a studio realize that that's quite expensive because they've got to pay rent and they've got to pay all the bills. So some of those people might decide to move back home with mum or dad or both if that's possible. But if they live in a different city, that might not be practical. So what we're going to see is people decide to downscale from an apartment or studio on their own and moved into a shared house. So I believe houses of multiple occupation, HMOs, we're going to see a rise in the demand for rooms in that type of accommodation. For two reasons. First of all, it's far more cost effective than living on your own in an apartment. When you live in an HMO, you pay the rent, that includes all the bills. In an apartment, you've got to pay the bills, the council tax yourself. It's at least an extra £200-300. So HMOs are far more cost effective. And actually, depending on the size of the apartment they're living in an HMO, they get their own room and they have shared facilities, kitchen, living room maybe. It might be that they actually get more space, albeit some of it shared, than actually in an apartment, and they're spending less money. The other thing is, I think we're going to see a lot of job migration. As people lose their jobs, we're going to get people who are packing up and moving to other cities where they don't know anyone to get new work. In that case, again, it's expensive moving into an apartment on your own. Moving into a shared house, at least for 6 months, gives you a few instant friends, people to go to the pub with, so a bit of social life, as well as saving money until you find where you ultimately want to settle in that new city. So for these reasons, I think there's going to be an increase in demand in HMO rooms. Now, I hear sometimes people say, oh yeah, but Simon, there's a massive oversupply of HMOs. And I would agree, in many areas there are too many HMOs. But if you go onto spareroom.co.uk, that's the website that most landlords advertise their rooms on, you'll see that the average stock, the average room is very, very boring. They're plain magnolia walls, they're very basic furniture, whereas I teach my students to have a much better quality of accommodation. We need to provide quality accommodation at affordable prices, and you will always be able to fill that. So don't compete on price. Don't compete with the other people who have very standard rooms. Make sure your rooms are better than what is also available in the market. You should always be able to fill them. And many of my students make a lot more rental income because they get a better discerning tenant who wants to live there and can afford to pay a higher rent. So HMOs are going to be a fantastic strategy in difficult times. The other strategy which actually also works very well with HMOs is purchase lease options, PLOs. This is where you control a property and you can gain cash flow and equity growth from a property you don't even own. I've done lots of other videos on YouTube, on this channel, all about purchase lease options. So I suggest you go and look at some of my free videos and gain some extra learning and understanding, because it's going to be a fantastic strategy for the next 3 to 6 months. So if you like this video, please do like it, put a thumbs up, please put a comment if you've got any questions. If you're not already a member, subscribe to this channel so you get updated. I'm going to do a lot more regular videos to keep you updated what's happening at these difficult times. And also I've prepared some a free of charge online training to teach you more about HMOs, a little bit about PLOs as well. So if you want to click on the link below in the description, you can register for online training and learn more about this incredible opportunity. For those of us who know what we're doing, it's going to be the best opportunity to buy property probably this decade. So as ever, I'd like to thank you for watching, and I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill.